Ever seen someone years after their divorce and it feels like they're still living in that final month of the marriage? Maybe the paperwork was signed 2, 5, 10, or even more years ago. Maybe they have a new partner. Heck, maybe they were the ones who wanted the divorce. But if you listen closely, they still talk about their ex with an intensity that feels current. Every conversation somehow loops back to what the ex did, what the ex said, or how the ex ruined everything. It's exhausting to watch, but if that's you, it is debilitating to live. The world tells you to just get over it. There are plenty of fish in the sea, but your brain feels like it's in a blender. Today, we aren't going to look at the obvious reasons people don't move on, like remaining feelings or financial ties. We are going deeper. We are going to look at the hidden, subtle psychological prisons that keep a person stuck, ruminating, and unable to breathe fresh air, even when the cage door is wide open. If you want to understand the messy reality of a heart that won't move on, join our community by hitting that subscribe button below. Let's start with a term that is close to home for many, but rarely spoken about: ambiguous loss. When someone dies, there is a funeral. There is a clear endpoint. Your brain understands that they are gone. Grief is brutal, but it is linear. Eventually, you accept the reality. Divorce is completely different. In divorce, the person is still alive. They are walking around. You might see them at soccer practice. You see them on social media. They are physically present, but socially and emotionally, they are dead to you. Your brain cannot reconcile that. Psychologists have found that this specific kind of grief is the hardest to process because it never gives you closure. You are grieving a living person, a shared future that will never happen, and the person you were with them. When you can't fully process the death of the relationship because the body of the relationship is still walking around, you don't move on, you just freeze in the grief. Now, take a look at the huge insight that gets overlooked. For 5, 10, 20 years, your identity was a we. You were the husband, the wife, the parent partner. You made decisions together. You planned weekends together. Your future was a pre-written story starring the both of you. When that story gets ripped up, it doesn't just create a vacancy in your house, it creates a vacancy in who you are. Suddenly, you are just I, and for a lot of people, that I feels terrifyingly hollow. When you go to a dinner party alone or have to make a major financial decision alone, you have to recreate an entire operating system for yourself from scratch. A lot of divorcees stay stuck, not because they want the relationship back, but because they are terrified of the unknown person they have to become. Holding on to the anger and the identity of the betrayed ex or the suffering martyr is actually a protection mechanism. It's an anchor that keeps you connected to a familiar identity, even if it's a painful one. It's safer than facing the void of, who am I now? Can we also talk about that mental movie you keep playing? The fights, the specific betrayals, the final moments? You play them over and over. This is called rumination, and it is psychologically addictive. When we feel pain, our brain produces a cascade of stress hormones like cortisol. But the brain also has a really tricky mechanism. It gets addicted to the intensity of those emotions. Thinking about the injury actually feels productive. You think, if I can just understand why it happened, I can prevent it. But you aren't understanding, you're re-traumatizing yourself. You're picking at a scab, preventing the wound from ever forming new skin. Every time you bring up the past in a conversation, you're getting a hit of that old, familiar intensity. It's a low-quality dopamine hit that keeps you linked to the source of the pain. The real psychological educational hurdle here is recognizing that letting go of the anger doesn't mean forgiving them. It means forgiving yourself for having felt that way for so long, so you can free up that mental real estate. So, what is the path forward? And I promise you, I'm not going to say, join a gym. Moving on doesn't mean the memory goes away. It doesn't mean the anger completely disappears. Moving on means you stop needing the validation of being the wronged party to feel seen. It starts with acknowledging the ambiguous loss. Accept that the grief is messy and will never have a clear funeral. It's okay to still feel a phantom limb where that relationship was. But the biggest step is creating the new identity. You have to actively build the new operating system. Start small. What's a hobby only you liked? What's a vacation destination only you wanted to see? Go do that. Every single time you make a decision purely for I, you are filling that identity void with substance rather than just empty echoes of them. The other person doesn't need to apologize or even admit they were wrong for you to move on. Clarity is a gift you give yourself by refusing to live another day in limbo. You are not broken because you haven't gotten over it. You are not flawed because you still think about it. You are simply navigating one of the most brutal psychological reboots human beings go through. It's okay if it takes time. And most importantly, accept that just because something ended doesn't mean your capacity to experience something meaningful ended with it. If this made you reflect on something you've been carrying quietly, hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss the next one. Because sometimes understanding why we feel stuck is the first step to finally moving forward. See you in the next one.